Judy, welcome.
Hi, Peter. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I think the question that comes to mind, and this kind of overlaps into the whole physical realm versus AI, and touches a little bit on, Peter, what you were saying, just in terms of where we're at with that technology. And I think just to throw this into the mix is the idea that the way we understand our imprint from a genetic coupling throughout time, I think that it remains in big question. But for example, since we know that experience embeds in the genetic coding, right? Trauma embeds, for example, in the body, then I'd be hard pressed to say that the only way to impregnate or replicate aspects of ourselves would be through genetic or DNA coding. And so, like, Amanda, as you know, I don't have children either. But I certainly feel like I'm the child of many, in the sense that the guidance, the love, the experience, the emotional interaction has been a part. And so I'm curious as to kind of where that, if we think of energy begetting energy, and there's this physical form, the idea that even from incarnation, if we're going to incarnate, no matter in what form that would be, the sense that there's like a wholeness of that, like the whole of my soul now would incarnate into something else. Or is that even parsing this out into more,
Yeah, so we're only, so you can't, if the theory is you can't die, of course, because your consciousness is imprinted in the DNA. It's imprinted in the memory stick. Your consciousness is not just memories of your life, but your consciousness goes out with it too. As part of the memory is your conscious memory as well, of who we are. This person's talking. This consciousness goes out with the memory. It's not just the physical memories of my life, but this consciousness memory of my life goes out too. So it goes out, and so it's like here's all the files that go out, but there's also a video of me talking. My conscious level is a video of me, a live version of that, and that consciousness, in theory, comes back when it's incarnated. That consciousness comes back, but with all the programming of my life and all the other ones come back, and the upgrade. But the consciousness comes back as well. And so I might not have the same voice. Not even definitely have the same body. It could be a mosquito, but the consciousness comes back inside that. Right. And so you bring it back. So there's you can't die. It's a misnomer of the theory of death, because it is, all it dies is our physical body. The physical body that was created by our mum and our dads through their DNA that created physical form, that's the only thing that dies. The other thing, none of the rest of it dies at all. And that's the exciting part, that we can't. As I say, just as this theories, I can't prove this.
Which is kind of where I'm going with that, is that since it's beyond that physical realm, right? And so when we talk about the consciousness, and then we talk about this idea that, for example, my genetic code will cease because I've not had children. And my question is, on one level, that could certainly be said. But on another level, which is this idea that consciousness has this, beginningless beginning, endless end, eternal composition that is an amalgamation of, big consciousness and little consciousness kind of a thing. That's where I'm saying is that on some level, we're thinking of the physical replication through and genetic code. And I'm saying on another level, so not only am I not dying, but to say that I haven't had children or had, I would use the word almost impregnate, because we have energies that are coming together that aren't even separated, except perhaps in our own minds. And so in that case, you know, that's where I question this idea of, yes, in this physical form, we can make these assertions, right, as
Yeah.
to evolution to a certain degree. On
Mm.
another, if we look at this from, you know, from more of a Taoist or a Buddhist perspective, let's say, or just from an energy or a quantum physics perspective, you know, the idea that we, you know, if my experience as a human being is embedded in my energetic imprint and that is going to leave this body, then that energetic imprint, for lack of better terms, would include the imprint of others, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
it does.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
So in
what,
other
what,
words, when I come back as the frog that I'm very excited to be next time, I might not be this person. I'm going to be a little Amanda, a little Peter, a little Corinne, a little Walter, a little Carrie, right? A little Iris thrown in because we've had this time together. So now I've changed, you know, or this energy has changed. Anyway, back to you on that.
No. It's a great thought because of the complexity of this. So the physical body dies, which has been created by your mum and your dad. Their DNA is imprinted in it, but it's not only the DNA that's inside your body, which is their memories. Their DNA, part of their DNA was a construction mechanism that created physical form. So inside their DNA has all their memories, which is their memory part of them. But they also had the construction mechanism that created a physical form, which is not part of memory. It's just part of how their body creates itself and the cells reproduce itself. One cell goes to 2 cells to 4 cells and reproduces itself to physical form. That's the building blocks of the physical body we sit in here. And when we have a sperm and an egg from male and female, we're creating the building blocks to create another physical form. But inside that, that part of the DNA is just one aspect of the DNA. The building block of DNA to build a physical form is it. But all the rest of the building blocks of the DNA goes back out with your soul. It has to. It can't not go out because it carries all your lineage of or everything you've experienced of your life. Whether it carries the lineage of your life and your DNA, then it's going to have to, inside your DNA is your parents' DNA. So it's going to have to carry that too. Yeah. And so we talk about the physical manifestation. What's going to happen is that building block that created us as a form with my mum and my dad that created this part, they're part of their DNA that created this. That part dies, but the DNA and all the memories, everything still keeps going on. And so whether I create another person with my DNA, but that DNA that comes back into another person still has the building blocks of other life forms inside it. And you add that to the parents that you had too, and you've got the parents' DNA of that physical body, plus the DNA building block that you had in yours as well, gets added together. And so, I mean, it's the complexity of that. My mind's trying to perceive how complex that is, and it just disappears because now you open a door as the DNA of all the parents and all the ancestors have their building blocks of physical form in their body as well, because they can create a physical body and all the memories of all the DNA still have to have that program that can create physical form, because otherwise it wouldn't. You can't not have it. Yeah. And so inside that creation of that, so basically, I don't think you lose any. I don't think you lose any capability. It's just, but this particular one, it stops in a physical form, but it doesn't stop that part of you going somewhere else. I think you brought up a really good point, Jenny. It's opened up an interesting door of that about the different aspects of the DNA. Isn't just memory. It's just not memory. It's everything else as well. You know, we could just disappear into the complexity of that about how much is inside the information of DNA. I saw some scientist was saying the other day, I was reading an article and said that our DNA can store more information than the whole universe in a single human DNA strand. Because it's like a huge storage unit that can store everything that's known to man and the universe and everything else in our own DNA individually. It's that big. The storage drive in our DNA is that big. It's inconceivable. There's no end to how much it can store because it's energetic. It's an energetic thing. It's not a little card. It's not a silicon kit. It's an energetic, not material, not physical memory. It's an energetic memory. So it can hold the understanding of the universe. So there's no end to it inside the DNA. I don't know how they work that out. I mean, it might be just his theory, but I can understand the principle of that. So then it's infinite how much it can remember, and it just doesn't have one function, which is a really good point you brought up. It can't have one function. It has to have the functions of everything, of whole life. It
Well,
has a whole physical. It can build physical form. It can build personality of characters. It can build all of that. It does the whole lot.
It's impregnable and imprintable, right? It's not just that, because it's like you have all that foundation, but then again, I'm a different person when I leave this conversation today.
Yes.
Right. And my genetic coding would be changed, right?
Yes, it does.
And so as we're moving forward, to me, this really speaks to what, Peter, what you talk about in terms of the, or like wisdom traditions are talking about the 7 generations that live within us, which is just a nice way to talk about, kind of what we're saying. But I just think that to me, it's quite comforting. And also, I'm not sure that's the right word, but it's comforting. And also, it completely makes sense in terms of when we talk about the Shen, right?
Yeah.
It's like, because then I go, oh, right. Okay. So we're just now trying to figure out this amalgamation of genetic tissue, and the possibility that lies within the realm of that tissue. And if we extrapolate that and talk about that from just a pure energetic standpoint, then that puts us right there. Do you know what I mean? Into that
Pretty much.
Yeah. Which I just love how that just gets real simple, real fast at the
yes.
end of that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, energetically, we're connected to everything.
Right.
Just go back to the atomic form, that everything's atoms. Everything known to existence, it comes from the idea of the atom and the energetic of a nucleus and the energy around the nucleus. And everything's just alive. And we're just part of that construct of that. We're just a pile of molecules. There's certain ways we look like this. But then not only are we the molecules, the energy of that, but we're the energy of the atom, not just the physicality of that atom. We're made up of the energy. What they say that 99.9% of a human body is just as gap, as emptiness around the nucleus, and all the air around the nucleus. It's just all air. So we're basically see-through. We're just this huge pile of nothingness, except for what our body, and what go back to the construct again, what our body perceives, what it thinks it sees. It's seeing only certain matter because it's only seeing certain coding that it sees to make physical form. But most of the coding is just gap. There's space bars. I love that.
Can I just put my
space
hand
bars.
I'm putting my hand up when you're ready.
Yeah, go. It's great.
Yeah, I'm loving this conversation. And what I'm thinking, Jennifer, when you were talking, is what came to me is like, the mitochondria, in the cell, and that the energy. So kind of that energy on, when you don't, necessarily, procreate and have another child. It's like, where does that energy go, right? And then it comes back for me to that collective consciousness and that ability for us to co-regulate together through that familiar energetic imprint that we all, I don't know, see. Like quite often when I meditate, I vision. So I see like just this massive grid over the world when I journey, and it's just like we're all just tuned in. But I've got a question, and I think about this probably too much. But, when you talk about, I was really interested in when you said, Peter, about you just delete the files. And what I'm really curious about, because, with a lot of work that I do, a lot of somatic work I do with my clients, when we talk about trauma and we talk about generational trauma and ancestral trauma, I'm really interested in this piece with, if we delete the file, then who are we? I know it's a really big question, and it kind of does my head in. It's kind of like, so where's that balance between digesting the trauma and digesting the consciousness, but also we're such a part of that, because there's no line, is there? It's kind of this kind of, I don't know if I'm making sense with what I'm saying, but I'm just really interested in the concept of, what does it look like to delete trauma, ancestral trauma, not necessarily our somatic trauma through this life, and what does that look like as far as learning from our ancestors and taking those pieces that are part of who we are? Because I don't believe I'm just me, I'm everything. Yeah.
Well, the first thing what you get, oh, excuse me. The first thing you get is quiet. That's the first thing you get, peace and quiet without it. But we don't want to take away the learning that we get from it, because it's important. Whatever the trauma was part of our theory, as our experience was to have that experience. Yep. And the experience is useful to us because it brings us into our character, and it builds character. Trauma builds character, but it doesn't build the character, it builds experience. And so our experience is what we have. That's yeah. I'd say it grows character, but because sometimes you think of trauma like that, it doesn't grow your character, but it does, because you have to deal with it. And if you don't deal with it, it will run you over, and you might not want to be here anymore if you don't deal with it, or you put it somewhere where it's can stay somewhere safe, so it's not affecting you. But the problem is it's still there, and as soon as you think of it, it just comes back up. Or you go into the whole thing, the concept of what that fear really is and what's driving that, and walk right into the center of it and sit inside the discomfort, and then see it for what it really is. And then quite often it's an experience to feel, and it's a feeling experience to have the experience and know what that feels like. And then it comes to a point where it doesn't serve you anymore now, because now it's just interfering with you being free. But it doesn't mean you don't have the experience, because you want to have the experience. It's important. Whatever the trauma was, it's important to have that feeling, what that felt like, and not think that I have to live with that feeling my whole life. I know what the feeling feels like. I've got that feeling. So now do I have to live in the experience of that feeling the rest of my life? No, you don't. Once you've had the experience and understand it and make some, I wouldn't say sense out of it, make some connection to it, connection to that deeper pain and that feeling of the suffering inside them. You can make connection with that feeling inside that. You could call it pain if you wanted to, or just the experience of that emotion, or that experience of the feeling that you physically feel. Once you've had the experience of that, you know what that feels like. Once you cut yourself, you know what that feels like. You don't have to keep cutting yourself. You know what it feels like, yeah? And so you can say, okay, well, I've had that experience. Well, I don't want to do that one again because it's bloody painful, but I've had that experience, so I don't want to do that again. But you can remember what it is, but you can let go of the experience of it and say, right, okay, but that was it. And do I need to have that experience? Do I need to keep thinking of that, all of it? No, I don't. And I don't need to keep thinking of it. Just let it go and file it in experiences, and not have a thread back to it that constantly keeps coming into our consciousness now, and cut the thread so it's in your file. So the difference, the equation, oh God, it's got given the answer to that. So the difference would be taking it off your desktop and putting it back into one of your folders and leaving the folder and it's not open. But if you got it on your desktop, it's still running in the background the whole time. It doesn't stop running. There's parts of your computer, the operating system, your computer are still linked into that file if it's on your desktop, even if it's not open. But on the desktop, it's still linked to it. That's a great analogy. I just realized the analogy of that's perfect. And so it's still running. So you've got to take it out of your desktop and put it in your hard drive as a memory inside your folder, but you don't have to have it running. And the problem is people have them running on the desktops, and they're constantly reacting to these because they're constantly referring, because they haven't let them go. They still somehow think they need to see them on their desktop because they identify themselves by this feeling, identify my trauma is identified who I am. Well, yeah, you've had that. You can put it back here now and go back to living without it, but you still have it. You don't lose the memory of that. You just don't have it open. And there's something about how you can take it off your desktop, outside of your mind, and that the whole function in mind where all these memories are kept, and to recategorize and put it back where it needs to do. Our body does this every night when you go to sleep. It reboots the computer. It goes through the whole day and recalibrates all the thoughts, puts them all in the folders it needs to be, And then you go to sleep, wake up in the morning, it's all gone, and there's nothing on your desktop until you open a program. Oh, what have I got to do today? Okay, poof, instantly the calendar program comes up in your mind. Well, I've got to do this, this, and this. I'm going to do, what am I going to do later on? Oh, I need to do that. Oh, the health one. Oh, I need to eat food. This. I open that folder. Now the folder for food's up, the folder for your calendar's up. But when you wake up, it's all off. I wake up in the morning, you don't even know what day it is. And I sit there sometimes, and when I wake up out of sleep state, and I consciously watch my mind trying to work out what day it is. And I go, no, I don't want to know. And I sit there, and I sit in there having no idea what day it is at all, let alone the time, but I don't know what day it is. And I watch my mind trying to work it out. It goes off, goes, but what did you do yesterday? And it's trying to use yesterday, the memory, to try and equate what's going to happen today, what day it is today. And I watch it and I turn it off and say, no, I don't want to know. And I sit there in this place and my mind hates it. My mind wants to know what's going on. And I sit there, no, I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to stay in this place of presence and not go there. And then it'll trap me, and it's clever, because it's clever. Something will happen and says, what's that? Oh, it's Tuesday. And go, oh, damn. It just wants to know. It wants to bring us back into consciousness, into this place. And so it's fascinating how our minds do that. But back to the construct of this idea of the memory thing, about you don't want to ever take away the experiences, because it grew you. It grew you. But if you're still living in it, inside the pain and suffering of it, part of it's about letting that go. And I don't mean letting it go as in say it didn't happen, because it did happen. It's true. It's 100% true. And it's in a folder. And you don't need to live in the pain of it every day. And how do you put it back in the folder so you don't have to live in that memory of that every day? And that's what people do so much work around in the psychological field, and this work around in the NLP. There's all these different ways so you cannot access that thought. Even though it's still there, you teach your ways not to know, because you know the experience. But it stops you going back to the emotional feeling of it. And as I say, there's so many different methods that do this to try and stop you having access to it. Otherwise, it's just overwhelming. And you can live inside that trauma your whole life, and you just become a victim to the trauma, and your whole life's around being a victim. And everything you do is adding the victim of that thing. And as I say, there's so many people done, so many millions of people done work around how to break that attachment to that thought, so you can be free from it. But you don't want to let it go, because it is who you are. It was your biggest help. It was the person that made you more conscious than anybody else. It was the thing that brought you into reality of experiencing and feelings and emotions and those that deeper. I was talking, I think it was a man, I might have been talking to a man about the whole emotional field. Is that in Chinese medicine, they don't see emotions as good or bad, they're just feelings. And the feelings are so powerful, so powerful. It's part of our experience as humans. We get to feel these feelings in the body. And the waves that come up in our body are these feelings. And the grief comes up in this huge wave. It makes you cry. Anger comes up in a huge wave. And rage comes up. But the rage comes up so fast and goes out so fast, it vents itself really quickly. So it's hard to feel the energy on the way up. But the anger energy is an extraordinary energy, as long as you don't take it out on somebody else. But to feel the wave of that, it's extraordinary. The grief, the fear energy comes up. Just watch a really scary movie and watch your body feeling that feeling. And the feeling of the fear is just bizarre when the music gets all intense just before you see somebody's going to jump out at you. And that feeling always goes, it's an extraordinary experience. The human orgasms and another extraordinary experience that our body feels. Every cell in your body feels it. Your body feels the fear. But if you see them as just an energetic experience, and they're all extraordinary experiences to feel your body, energy, something, and all of those you can't explain with your mind, because there's no words to explain them beyond mind. They're just experiences, experience of heat, cold, anything, the flavors and all those experiences we have that are beyond mind. They're all extraordinary experience, but as soon as we start categorizing them as one's good and one's bad, it's the same thing. And then we lose the ability to have the rich experience of life. Now we're blocking pieces off because we don't want that feeling. We're blocking it off. We just want the good ones. We don't want those ones. But what if those ones are just as extraordinary as the other ones? It's just that you've been told that they're not good. And it's not true. Maybe they're just extraordinary experiences too. Then they're equally as fantastic. But it's difficult because we're programmed to believe some are good and some are bad. We were talking about men crying the other day, about men crying, and say, like, it was always told that only soft people cry, weaklings cry. No, the true power is to be able to go there for a man and feel the emotion and feel it. That's the true power. The weakness is when you try to avoid it, when you push it away and don't want to feel it. That's the weakness. The strength is you can actually let it happen. Just feel yourself feeling that and just be okay with it. It takes courage to do that. But then when you realize you have that, you realize it's not actually courage. I just want to have the experience. I don't need courage. I need a choice to experience that feeling and not think it's bad. But when we're told we're not allowed to have that experience because it's bad to cry for boys, which is such a horrible thing, then we think there's something wrong with it. So then we think there's something wrong with those emotions too, because we see our parents not wanting to feel that. So we buy away from it. But the true experiences as a soul is to have them all in their richness and just let them cascade through your body and see them as a physical experience of feelings, of this extraordinary feeling inside this physical body. And I don't even know, half of them are not even physical feelings, they're energetic feelings. And why would you want to not have them? Only because somebody told you they're not good, because they have equated some bad thing that happened to that feeling. And then say, well, it's bad for anybody to have that feeling. No, it's not true. We have such an incredible soul living in here, having this incredible experience, and then we block off half the experience because we think they're not right. Well, maybe they were perfect. Maybe they were just exactly what you needed to feel to have an experience of life. Yeah. Anyway, Corinne, thanks for your point there. I think it was great. It's inspiring. It's inspiring to have this conversation, because you can't quite often have these conversations with people. It's just, especially about the death one, it's a taboo subject with lots of people, because people have incredible fear of death. Yeah. Anyway, and I'm just there to say, I'll put that waiver. I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm just saying this is what I think, and this is, some of it's from my own experience, and some of it's just what I think. I don't know what other people think too. I read their book, but still, it's no use to me unless I've had the experience myself. Otherwise, I'm just quoting other people's experience. I don't like doing that. I like to quote my own experience of what I felt, and then it's real to me. Well, it's real as in my perception of what I think happened, because then remember, my mind's trying to make some sense out of what it is. So I'm still fabricating my own experience as well. And then trying to explain something you can't explain. There you go. How good is that? And you're listening to my words, trying to work out what I'm trying to say, and you're interpreting my words differently because you have a different experience of what I'm saying. Go human communication. Anyway.